In this video, we're going to cover quarter beat notes, starting with my arrangement of the slow movement of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata. If you don't know Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, I really encourage you to listen to the piece in its entirety. It's a pretty amazing piece. The opening of the first movement goes like this. And so on. Very melodramatic piece. Also includes this fantastic chord in the middle. If you ever make it through my courses as far as my piano chords course, you'll be able to analyze that as a diminished seventh chord over the third of a minor triad. Anyway, that's very advanced. Point being, it's a great piece. My intermediate classical course features two arrangements of the slow movement, and the melody sounds like this. This is what the second arrangement sounds like. So on. It's a beautiful melody. And I also have a even more simplified version of it at the beginning of the course, which is just the melody and bass notes like this. And that's the one we're going to be analyzing in the first part of this tutorial. So let's look at the score. We're going to be analyzing just the rhythm of this piece because this piece features some quarter beat notes later on. Let's start by looking at the time signature. First question to ask is the bottom number of the time signature a 4? Because in that case, the fourth column of my note length chart is going to be true. Well, the bottom number is a 4. The time signature is 2-4. So that means that a quarter note is 1 beat. And the 2 at the top means that there are 2 of them in a bar. And sure enough, if we look at bar 1, either hand, if we just look at, let's look at the left hand. Sure enough, we just have 2 quarter notes in the left hand. So that matches the time signature 2-4, 2 quarter notes. So that means in terms of writing in the beats, that's going to be very straightforward for bar 1. It's just going to be, the beats are going to be 1, 2. So each of those notes goes on a beat. And in bar 2, the left hand is continuing with a couple more quarter notes. So if we're counting the beats in the first 2 bars, it's very straightforward because of the left hand. 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's pretty simple. It's a very slow piece. Adagio means that it's slow paced, so those beats are pretty far apart. If we now look at bar 3, and by the way, I'm rushing through these stages a little bit because we've covered this stuff already. We've covered like whole beat notes and half beat notes. So that's a whole beat note. If we look at bar 3, instead of having 2 quarter notes in each hand, we have 4 eighth notes. So each beat is then split in 2. So counting bar 3 would be 1 and 2 and 1, taking us into the first beat of bar 4. So there we're also counting off beats. So in the right hand, the B and the G are going on beats 1 and 2. And then the D and the A are going on the off beats. And we're going to demarcate the off beats by saying the word and. So we have 1 and 2 and 1. So a quarter note is 1 beat. An eighth note is half a beat. Well, let's go on to bar 7 now. Let's look at the left hand of bar 7 to begin with. In the left hand, we once again just have 2 quarter notes. So that's beat 1 and that's beat 2. It's pretty straightforward. In the right hand, by the way, the right hand is in the bass clef, so that's why that note is a middle C and not an A up here. So the right hand starts with a quarter beat note, so that's going to take up the whole of beat 1. But then beat 2 is split into 4. So here is where we have quarter beat notes. That whole second beat is split in 4, so each of those notes is a quarter of a beat. And each of those notes is also a 16th note. So again, have another look at the note length chart if you need to. Ideally by this stage, you've printed it off and you can refer to it while watching these videos. It sounds a little bit confusing, but it makes mathematical sense. If a quarter note is 1 beat, then if you divide it in 4, a quarter of a beat is a 16th note. 4 times 4 is 16, so a quarter of a quarter note is a 16th note. A 16th note is a quarter of a beat. So the bar gets played like this. I mean, it's easy enough working out how the timing should work out in this particular bar, because the beat is simply split in 4. So we have but what if we actually wanted to count those quarter note, confusing myself now, those quarter beat notes? There we go, they're 16th notes, but each of them is worth a quarter of a beat. We may not need to for this particular bar, but as you'll see in the next piece we look at, it's very useful to be able to count quarter beats when the rhythm is more complicated. Well, I guess we could sort of say 1 and 2 and for quarter beats, but that's kind of confusing. Also, just using the word and for all of those different notes doesn't distinguish between, the second quarter beat and the third quarter beat and so on. So what we do instead is we say the numbers 2, 3, 4 after each of the beats. So if the beats are going 1, 2, then counting it with quarter beats is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So don't confuse those with beats. They're quarter beats, or if you want, we can call them sub beats. They're going in between the beats, and the 2, 3, 4, to be really technical, are demarcating the note a quarter of a way through the beat, halfway through the beat, and then 3/4 of the way through the beat. So applying that to bar 7, well, the first beat is not split in 4, but let's write in the quarter beats all the way through the bar. So that's 1 beat. We're going to split it into 4. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the second half of the bar, 2, 2, 3, 4. So the whole bar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And then if we continue into bar 8, we have the same rhythmic pattern, different notes, but same rhythmic pattern in the right hand. We have a quarter note, so that's 1 beat. And then again, the second beat of the bar is split into 4 16th notes, adding up to 1 quarter note. So let's play through those 2 bars, counting all of the quarter beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So that is how you count quarter beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Just don't get confused between the beats and the quarter beats. So in the score that I've put on the screen, I've made the beats bold, 1 and 2, and then the quarter beats just normal, 2, 3, 4. So that is with a fairly straightforward quarter beat pattern where we're taking a whole beat and dividing it into 4 equal parts. We're now going to look at another piece from my intermediate classical course, but much later, Grieg's Arietta. And this has a much more complicated quarter beat pattern. But to begin with, let's just analyze a few other bars in the piece and look at the time signature, not the key signature. So the time signature is exactly the same as that of Beethoven's Adagio Cantabile. It is 2/4, meaning that there are 2 quarter notes in each bar. So looking at bar 5, for instance, you can see that in the left hand. We just have 2 quarter note chords in the left hand. So if we're counting beats, it's just 1, 2. 2 beats in the bar, each beat is a quarter note. Now if we look at the right hand of the same bar, instead of having 2 quarter notes, we have 4 eighth notes. So just as we had in the Beethoven piece, an eighth note is half a beat. So now counting that bar hands together is going to be 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. That's the beats and the off beats. So let us continue with that line. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Whoops. Sorry. I'm not used to 2 beats in a bar. That should have gone back to 1 because we're in a new bar. Let's do that again. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And then in bar 7, we have 3 eighth notes, but then the last eighth note is split in two. It's split into two 16th notes. So once again, a 16th note is a quarter of a beat. This is all because the bottom number of the time signature is a 4. So if we were counting that bar 7, in quarter beats, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4 on those last two notes. However, let's move on from that bar and look at a somewhat more complicated bar and go into detail with bar 9, because this is a really complicated 16th note pattern or quarter beat pattern. So if you look at, okay, the left hand is really simple. The left hand is simply a half note. A quarter note is 1 beat, so a half note is 2 beats. That left hand chord is taking up 2 beats. That's the whole bar, because there are only 2 beats in each bar in this piece. But the right hand, however, is a mixture of 8th notes and 16th notes. And because the smallest time value of these is a 16th note, we're going to count 16th notes. A 16th note in this piece is a quarter of a beat, so we're counting quarter beats. Exactly the same way we did with the Beethoven 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So 16th note is going to be a quarter of a beat, which means that an 8th note is going to be 2 quarters of a beat. Because we're counting quarter beats, we care about how many quarters of a beat each note is taking up. So that first A in the right hand is actually going to take up 2 quarters of a beat. A half is 2 quarters of a beat. It's a half beat note, so it's 2 quarters of a beat. So in terms of writing in the numbers, that's going to be 1, 2. It's taking up 2 quarters of a beat. This is all, I know this is kind of a pain to work out, but again, this is the problem with music notation when it comes to rhythm. It is really not very intuitive. Hopefully, the more we do this, the more you'll get used to this and how it works. So we're going to write 1, 2 underneath that A, because it's an 8th note, and therefore equals 2 quarters of a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next two notes are 16th notes. They're a quarter of a beat each, so they get a single number each, 3 and then 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. This is now the second beat, so that's going to be a 2. That's a 16th note, so it just takes up a quarter of a beat. So the next note goes on the next quarter of a beat. 2, 2. Getting a pair of 2s there, 2 2s in a row, because we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2 to where we are currently. 2, 2. That top note, notice that, let's compare those two notes. So that D has 2 tails on it, so it's a 16th note, but the F just has 1 tail on it, so it's an 8th note, which means it's taking up 2 quarters of a beat, just like that initial A. So that's going to cover 2 and 3. It gets 2 numbers underneath it. And then that E flat is a 16th note because it has 2 tails on it. So again, that's just a quarter of a beat, and that just gets 4. So once again, we're looking at basically the number of tails on each of these notes. If it has 1 tail, it's an 8th note. If it has 2 tails, it's a 16th note, which is hard to pronounce. Consult my note length chart if you're not familiar with that. So playing through the whole bar right hand only, counting these quarter beats, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And so that's a lot of intellectual effort to get to that stage of working out how the quarter beats correspond with the notes. But the great thing about this is once you actually do that and you can say the quarter beats out loud and play the melody at the same time, it does give you the rhythm really accurately. That's a pretty tricky rhythm, but if I now play it repeatedly with the counting, you'll begin to hear what the rhythm should sound like without the counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So that's me speeding up bit by bit. And let's say we were to continue the quarter beat counting in the next bar, even though there are no notes which are a quarter of a beat long each. Well, that's a quarter note, so that's 1 beat. And that is also a quarter note, so it's another beat. But if we're going to continue counting quarter beats, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And the point of doing that is that we can now play those two bars together, counting quarter beats all the way through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So with the left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So now you can actually hear how analyzing the rhythm of the piece is allowing us to play it accurately without sort of cheating in inverted commas by simply listening to a recording. And once we worked out that bar, bar 11 is exactly the same rhythm. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. You can simply copy the numbers from bar 9, which means that we can actually now play the whole line rhythmically accurately. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, whoops, sorry. 1, my eyesight is obscured by the microphone, so I couldn't see where that chord was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So without counting, this is what it should sound like. So the end product is a nice piece of music, even though it's a lot of effort to get there by counting these quarter beats. Hopefully that introduction to quarter beat notes should give you the tools to, analyze similar rhythms in other pieces. It's just a question of basically doing the mathematics, working out how all the different notes relate to each other. If a quarter note's one beat, an eighth note's going to be half a beat, 16th note is going to be a quarter of a beat. And then basically break down the rhythm into the smallest unit you need to in order to analyze each bar accurately.